So as I said, we've got a few more sessions to go and still some really cool stuff to cover. Quick reminder about why we're here and who we are. So Sanctuary Graduates are the early careers attraction and recruitment experts. We've built campus networks and university partnerships, which allow us to reach any student at all UK universities. We are helping hundreds of businesses reach, attract and hire the most diverse graduates, interns and apprentices. Diversity really does run through the core of our business, which makes things like this so enjoyable. And more than half of our clients come to us to help with the diversity issue as their main reason for working with us. Our expertise in diversity and our proud partnership with the Social Mobility Foundation allows us to put on events such as this. Various ways that we support: we provide funding to support disadvantaged students at our partner universities. We donate money from all of our diversity client campaigns to our partners, the Social Mobility Foundation, and we deliver expert sessions to our university partners. And if you want to have a chat about what else we can do and help your university, then please do get in touch with myself. Just a quick reminder to the employers of the various services that we provide, from diversity attraction marketing to end-to-end process management for graduates, interns, and apprentices. And for those of you who look after your own recruitment but might need a bit of support in terms of the attraction marketing, we've got various options for you too. So this includes driving diverse applications, making sure you've got a good diverse pool of candidates to fill in events with the right kind of people, and if you need us to, managing your entire marketing strategy. And again, if you'd like to know more about us and what we can do for you, then just get in touch with myself on LinkedIn or email and I'll be able to help you. Okay, so now we're going to move into our next session for the day, and I'm really pleased to present Eddie Fletcher, Head of Social Mobility at the Ministry of Justice. Hey Eddie, how you doing? Good. I can't hear you on your mic, Eddie. I'm not sure if this doesn't look like you're muted, but it might be the settings. No, not yet. You might have to. Sometimes the mic goes a bit funny on Zoom and you have to click the bottom left audio and select the right mic.
No good.
Yeah, there we go. Zoom likes to mess with us from time to time, but we're in. So just to introduce Eddie quickly. So Eddie is, as I said, the Head of Social Mobility for the Ministry of Justice. His team has led the development of cross-government programs that have supported those from less privileged backgrounds to get in and get on in the civil service, helping the organisation to better reflect the society it serves. And they do a whole heap of stuff to support disadvantaged candidates and employees. And today we'll be focused on a small part of that, which is how they go about engaging with young people. So Eddie, I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. There we go. Okay, brilliant. So yeah, how you doing, Eddie? Okay?
Yes, not too bad. Thank you very much. Looking forward to the session.
Good. Nice to see you. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this chat. So yeah, I guess first of all, do you mind just giving yourself a little bit of an intro on top of what I've just done?
Okay, yeah, no problem. So as Chris mentioned, my name's Eddie Fletcher, Head of Social Mobility for the Ministry of Justice. I think I'll give a bit of context to the Ministry of Justice, and that will probably help the conversation a little bit further down the line. So Ministry of Justice is one of the largest civil service departments. So we have almost 90,000 staff. We cover a lot of the justice sector, so prisons, courts, etc. So quite a big operational element, but also a very wide nationwide approach and footprint. A lot of the work we do in the social mobility arena is about attracting people from less privileged backgrounds into our organisation, about helping them get in and then get on. And a lot of the work that we do is around that whole pathway. But I guess today we'll be concentrating quite a bit on the former elements in terms of our outreach work.
Cheers, Eddie. Yeah. So if anyone has any questions, as usual throughout the session, then put them into the Q&A and we'll get to as many as possible. And if you want to throw a few curveballs at Eddie about the other stuff they do, then I'm sure he'll be happy to answer. So obviously he's touched on engaging with young people, but if you want to, he might be able to touch on some other things if we've got time as well. Cool. So yeah, as I said, back to today's topic. So I guess, first of all, we had a bit of a chat about this, didn't we? And I think you'd like to explain, I guess, why you should be engaging with young people, first of all, just to set the scene.
Okay, can you hear me?
About that? Yeah, all good.
That's okay. So I think from an organisational perspective, it's not a nice to have to be engaging with a diverse potential workforce. It's critical. It's critical for the civil service. A lot of what we do, well, everything that we do has an impact on individuals. The work that the civil service does impacts individuals every single day. So it's only right that our organisation reflects that society as accurately as it possibly can. And I think in the past, the civil service has been seen as something that doesn't reflect, especially the higher up it goes, and the data tends to show that. And I think why it's important for us to engage with young people, and by young people, I mean anybody up to the age of probably 30 realistically, but we do tend to target it, as I'll come into. But it's really important to do that attraction element, to say that we are an employer, we are somebody that you should be one of your career options. And then I guess for us, it's about supporting those people from less privileged backgrounds, from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, in order to encourage them to apply, encourage them to consider us, but also to help them through that, what can be quite a minefield of an application process for the civil service, as it is for similar large organisations.
Brilliant. Thanks, Eddie. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about how you go about actually engaging with young people and how you sort of segment those groups and stuff like that.
So it's pretty impossible to lump them all together. We engage with young people because the message is quite different. So what we've learned in our last probably 7 years working in this area is that the messaging is pretty critical. So if we say we term them as 3 distinct groups for us, so we talk about 14 to 16-year-olds, so school children, in essence, probably going through the GCSE, that kind of age group. The messaging to them is something quite different than if you're talking to a 16 to 18-year-old, and then 18 plus, i.e. graduates, predominantly for us. So the messaging we tend to use for that younger group is around building confidence and about building that aspiration. So we use a lot of career talks. I am a civil servant and I do this, and I came from this kind of background, and this is where my skills help me to do my job. So understanding that if you come from a less privileged background, the civil service is for everybody, and just getting those voices out. And I heard in one of the earlier talks somebody about saying, getting staff to tell their story is really important. And I think that's what we do quite a lot with that younger age group, just to engage them in the reality of what our organisation is and what it does. But also we build in things around, confidence building. So how can you use the skills that you have as an asset rather than a barrier to getting on, and encourage them to do that and increase that aspiration. When we talk to 16 to 18-year-olds, again, the conversation is something quite different, because they're slightly more mature potentially, but also they'll be looking at that career option. So that we build more in from that career perspective. That may be around particular types of career, so what we term as professions, so things like finance, commercial, etc. And we'll talk a little bit more in those more nuanced terms, helping them to make better decisions in their next step. So that may be an educational decision, or possibly a career decision in terms of apprenticeships. And we're starting to have those more career focused conversations. So apprenticeships being an option that we may go and talk to them about. But essentially we'll keep to those principles: confidence, aspiration, really key for us there to help build that. Not only will we build that in when we go and speak to young people, but also if we can get them to come and speak to us in terms of like work experience days or insight days, as we tend to run. So again, having that slightly more nuanced contact. When you get to graduates, it's a different ball game completely. So we have specific graduate outreach programs where we will target universities. So we, in my work, we don't go to Oxford or Cambridge, we don't go to Red Brick or Russell Group universities at the moment. We tend to target our resource. So we'll use organisations that, sorry, my screensaver just decided to go off. We'll go to universities that have a high intake of students from the local area. We make sure we have a national approach. We have universities in Wales, Scotland, England, but we'll have a good distribution. The conversation is very different there. It is about career choices. You can talk about professions more eloquently, and you can have more targeted approach to certain graduates, so you can segment those graduates again a little bit more. And we build programs that enable us to engage more fully with them. So we will have mentoring programs that have a distinct outcome where we're supporting that talent pipeline and that attraction pipeline, and we'll have interventions for graduates or for that age group, talking about particular areas of the business. So it becomes much more nuanced as we go through. And I think that's really important as an organization, that you understand that you don't have a blanket approach to young people from less privileged backgrounds. You have a nuanced approach that you can tailor towards their particular needs.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense, Eddie. And I'm guessing there's a sort of clear link between those three age groups and pathways and stuff like that as well, right?
Absolutely. And I think what's nice now, we've been doing it for a while. We're starting to see those repeats again. So we'll see people in one phase, and then we may see them again in another. Not necessarily sequential, but we might see them as a young person, 14-year-old, and then we might pick them up again as a graduate. It's difficult, the tracking element of that, and we may talk about that a little bit, but that tracking element is pretty impossible at the moment for us. However, we're starting to see that come through when we have conversations with people.
Cheers, Eddie. Thanks. Cool. So you've obviously explained sort of how you go about engaging, but how important is the messaging you're putting across? And how does, thinking about the people that are joining today, range of organizations, different sizes, how do they go about deciding on that messaging? And have you got any thoughts just on that? What should they be saying to young people? What do you say to young people?
So I think for that young group, it's about the story. It's about the individual story. There's very much the case of, if you can't see it, you can't be it. That old adage that is really relevant for that age group particularly, because for civil service in particular, a lot of young people don't even know what the civil service is, because we're not a commercial organisation that has to advertise that. We're also quite a diverse workforce in terms of we do lots and lots of different things, so it's difficult to lump it all together in one thing. So it is very much about getting those individual stories, so getting people to do their story in front of kids, to say, I'm a civil servant and I work in XYZ organisation, and this is the kind of job I do, and this is the background I do. That's engaging for people, especially if you can, if you're going to speak to somebody in the Northwest, you've got a member of staff or an ambassador who goes out, who is from that area, they can engage with that a little bit more. So it's really about getting those hooks into your organisation quite early on. When you're talking to 16 to 18-year-olds, again, you want that engagement, you want that link, you want to get that personal connection with them to a certain extent, but it's also about that wider education choice. So what we'll do is we'll send different people with different skill sets or different messages to those different groups, and it's about making sure that you link in with the school or the college or the university that you're talking to, get their advice. That's really critical for us, making sure that we have that connection with the establishment to make sure that we know what we're going into and we know what they want. What are their teachers talking about? Can we influence that? Can we link in with that? Can we bring that together? So there's a kind of a relevance to it. And I think, when we're talking to the university students, that is very much that career professional. I'm coming to the end of my graduate program. What am I going to do next? And it's very much a link into career. So we do a lot of things around supporting graduates to make decisions, not necessarily to come to be a civil servant. That's not always our aim. It's about enabling to make that the correct decision, or just giving them a bit more information about that.
Brilliant. Thanks, Eddie. So next question, I guess you've touched on it, and this covers a few areas in terms of the challenges you face and how you sort of take them through the processes. But I guess people from a recruiter background are obviously going to want to know how we can create a pipeline of talent and how we can get people applying, you know, off the back of these, you know, conversations and engagements when they're younger. So yeah, talk to us a bit, if you don't mind, about how that works in real life, creating the talent pipeline, and I guess the challenges that come with it.
Absolutely. And I have not got all the answers. I'm not going to say that quite up front. It's not like we have the solution, you just do this and it all works. It's complicated, and it takes a lot of trial and error, and what works for one won't work for another. So there's no hard and fast rules. However, there are some key building blocks that you need to ensure. So I remember at the very start, when we started going out to schools initially to say, you know, we are the civil service, this is what we do, here's some career stories. It's not going to be for everyone, but when you get people that are interested and you can engage and you can connect with them, it's about making sure you've got that next step. I'm interested, what can I do? What else are you offering me? So very quickly we had to build things like work experience placement. So giving interested people that opportunity to continue that interest, making sure that those connections are available. If you can't do work experience, what about mentoring? Are there any other connections that you can make to enable to make sure that you keep that interest going? Now, that's not definitively going to add to your talent pipeline. You can't. It's really difficult to measure, because you can't take data for a 14-year-old and track it in 10 years' time as a 24-year-old. Did they come and work for you? So that intervention worked. So that's not really feasible for us at the moment. However, we take the approach that if we can make a connection and we can keep that connection for a period of time, those individuals are going to have a much better opportunity. I think on some of the earlier conversations you've had this week, today, is what are we trying to change? Are we trying to change the individual, or are we trying to change the organization? And I think for us, it's very much about both, to be fair. It's about supporting individuals to make better choices. So giving them those professional conversations with members of staff, allowing them to make those connections, to have that, you know, that conversation with a professional that they don't know. That builds confidence, and that builds that aspiration to a certain extent. But very much we try to change the organization as well. So try to change the way we do things. So how are we recruiting? How are those people with talents? How are we bringing them into our organization? So very much about linking them in on a long term. It becomes easier as they get older. So as I say, graduates, it's very simple. So what we've built with our graduate pipeline, I'm not going to say it's a talent pipeline yet because I can't evidence that, but certainly with our graduate pipeline, we make those connections in terms of mentoring very strongly. So we have a graduate aspiration program where graduates are matched with a civil servant for 6 months, just 1 hour a month, and we will put learning opportunities within that, so you can learn about a different department, a different profession. So there's learning taking place there. So you're building their skill set, you're building their understanding, but you're also building that one-to-one relationship with a civil servant, so that then if they do decide that that's something that they might want to consider once they finish their degree, they've got a broader skill set to pull on to enable them to make that connection. I think as a civil service organisation, it's very difficult for us to say, okay, well, we're just going to employ 100 people or 1,000 people and just bring them in. I think private sector organisations, you can do that. You have that ability to do it. We're bound by certain rules that don't allow us to do that. But I think that's certainly something you can do. So it's almost like using that mentoring relationship as an extended interview. You know, you can build that relationship over time. Are they talented? Are they what you're looking for? Are they the kind of people that you want in your organization? you've had that conversation over 6 months, you can probably make that decision and say, okay, let's give them a try. Let's put them on an internship program or a short-term contract and see if they fit with us. And if we fit with them, and then you can take that talent further on into your organization once they're in.
Brilliant. Thanks, Eddie. And I guess just bringing together everything I've asked you, or trying to anyway, is yeah, just bringing back to the audience and thinking maybe we've got a lot of people out here that are, you know, doing some work with graduates probably, but maybe not doing anything younger than that. So what tips would you give to organizations of any size really, but just that are dipping their toes into this and are just starting in terms of engaging with school, you know, students at school down to 16, 18, or colleges and local areas, anything like that really?
Okay, so the advice is keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. I think simple aims, simple outputs. It's not about taking somebody who's 15 and getting them into a position where when they're 18, they're going to apply for a job with you. It's not, at that age, it's not about that. It's about that confidence and that aspiration, and putting your organization as one of the opportunities there. So if they've got a good connection with an organization, it'll be in their mindset when they are looking for a future career. That's the idea for us. I think also your staff are your greatest asset. So use them to go and talk to schools. You know, what we found in our organization is it's not me that goes, and we don't employ somebody who goes and talks to schools. That's not the job. It's our staff that want to go and do that. You know, go and visit a school in your local area. We manage that from a central perspective, but the voices and the people that go out are our staff. They're real people. They do real jobs. They're not going with any agendas. They're just going to tell their story. We support that with simple materials, but having those additional hooks in place is really critical. You know, we hear from our ambassadors that go out and talk to people. You know, they want work experience. They want those extra connections. Where can I find out more, etc. So make sure you've got those things in place, but use your staff, keep it simple, and then, you know, measure what's coming back. What's the feedback from the schools? Are you giving them the right kind of information? What's the feedback from the universities? Are you starting to get applications increasing from certain areas where you're intervening? Is your intervention connect? So just make sure you've got that feedback loop fully engaged, and that enables you to get better. But don't be afraid, I think is the other message. Don't be scared, because I think any connection can be a good connection. You know, it might not be the perfect connection first time around, but that's never going to really happen. It's about taking it, learning from it, dipping your toe in the water, do a little bit more. And I think it grows over time. We've found that, you know, our increase in events has really mushroomed this year in terms of how many we do. We've started, you know, we're doing 100 events in March alone. That was something we might have done 100 in a year. So it really increases over time. So start small, get bigger, and don't be afraid.
Good advice, Eddie. Thanks. Yeah, that I guess resonates with a lot of the stuff we heard earlier. Freya from KPMG, I know, was saying that, you know, use just people around you, basically. You know, even if you've got one person driving this, drag people around from the business, because they're going to have the biggest impact. They're actually doing it and they can get in front of people. So yeah, really good advice. And
you get a wider diversity of people that go and speak to them. You know, it's not just the same old people going and saying the same old thing. You've got that much diversity. It also helps your staff as well, which is one of the things that we're really finding. You know, we talk about recruitment, but actually retention of staff. If you've given them something else, you're giving them that ability to go and tell their story, that supports your actual retention of your own staff as well, which is a nice side bit, actually.
Yeah, it's a good point, isn't it? When you add things up, people want to get involved, don't they, on the whole? Yeah. And if they don't have to, right? So here we go. So got quite a nice specific question around apprenticeships. So for 16 plus, okay? So someone's asked, they've got 2 and 4 year programs. And what they've found recently is that the communication skills seem to have dropped off compared to 3 years ago in terms of applicants, I'm assuming. We have assumed this is due to the pandemic. Have you seen a similar thing, Eddie?
I think Communication. I always say that communication is one of the biggest skills you need, in a work environment, but, to help you get on. And we know that the pandemic has had an impact on that. People are staying at home for significant periods of time. Education was disrupted, etc., etc. So it's certainly something. It's not something that we have hard evidence about, but it's something that we're starting to see. And I think that's where that mentoring, that putting young people in a relationship with a civil servant or a professional enables that communication. It really starts to get the way that they not only they speak, but they write, because all our work is done virtually. But email conversations, you can go back and you can say, okay, well, try structuring it this way. That enables your better communication. Try speaking around this way. So we're finding that the intervention that we do as civil servants, as mentors, and when we go into schools, colleges and universities, is having an impact on that communication hugely, not only on their speaking communication, their written communication, but also their listening, which again is quite critical.
Understood. Thanks, Eddie. Time for another question, I think. So Sophie from EY praises you to say 100 events in a month is impressive. How do you encourage the business to prioritize this over their day-to-day work?
So I think we're quite fortunate in the civil services. Is all civil servants have access to 5 volunteering days a year. We used that, but I think it's about the goodwill of the business. We've spent a lot of time explaining to the organizations that we work with that it's a good thing. This will help your organization. Not only does it help you in your recruitment element, but it's that retention bit, it's that well-being of your staff. The ability to give something back is such an amazing feeling for staff to be able to do that. If we can provide that opportunity, then that's great. Where we have the most difficulty, I would say, is engaging with the educational establishments. That's the big work, in terms of you have to literally contact them individually. We want to come, we do this, can we come and speak to your school, etc., etc. So there's a lot of work in that element, but the joy of going out that we hear from our ambassadors that go and talk to schools, I think that's one of the great things that enables our business. And senior leaders see that. We make sure senior leaders go out there, so if they go out there, then they can't tell their staff not to go out there. So we try to do a lot of different things to encourage the business to do it. And it's not for everybody, we know that, but there's a significant minority of our organisation that want to do that, and that's the win for us.
Perfect. One final question, just around safeguarding, really, because I guess when you it's probably a really relevant point, and one that's quite apt when it's 14 to 16-year-olds in particular. So with the mentoring partnerships between members of staff and young people, is there anything extra you need to put in place for those mentoring discussions? Just touch on that briefly, if you don't mind, Eddie.
Absolutely. So again, it's different for different age groups. So below 18, it's very strict. We tend to use third sector organisations that have those processes, have those things in place. All of our mentoring with young people is done online. So anything below age of 18 is done online and done through a third sector. So things like Mosaic, Schools 21, Prince's Trust, etc. There's lots out there, but Sanctuary probably being one of them, we could work with that. Once it gets to 18, it becomes less complicated, because at 18 they make their own decisions, they're adults. We tend to do it all virtually where possible, but we can do more face-to-face, and the safeguarding is less of an issue. Obviously, as civil servants, we're all security vetted and we abide by a code of conduct. So there are things in place to support it, but it's certainly something that you need to think about. When they do their face-to-face events with schools, there's always a teacher in the classroom, so it's always covered by the school. It's not you that needs to cover that.
Amazing. Brilliant, Eddie. Really appreciate your time, and gonna have to wrap it up there. But yeah, good to speak, and yeah, thanks so much for the insight. Yeah, speak to you soon.
Cheers, guys. Thanks a lot. Hope you have a good day.
Take care.
Chris. Thanks, mate.
Bye.